Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, September 29th, 2017, the WNW 303. Good news, I'm going to start with good news. This is China orders North Korean businesses. Now, these are businesses in China. North Korean businesses closed under UN sanctions. The U.S. just put some new sanctions on, and the world agreed. This is Yahoo News, 9/28/17. North Korean businesses and ventures with Chinese partners must close within 120 days of the UN Security Council September 11th approval of the latest sanctions. That puts that in early January, that these businesses are going to have to close down. Now, they're giving them fair warning. North Korean companies operate restaurants and other ventures in China, helping to provide the North with foreign currency. Folks, this is huge. China blinked. They blinked big. And this is above and beyond what they were required to do with sanctions. I mean, they are halting North Korean businesses. They also have North Koreans, work in China at factories and send money home. This is a huge deal. Now, I know it takes time for sanctions to work, but this is a giant positive step delivered by China. And it might avert nuclear war, and that is good news. I mean, all these things that Trump was doing, calling him Rocket Man, and I mean, dressing him down at the UN Security Council, people, oh, that's unpresidential. Hey, I think it worked. I think it not only worked on North Korea, because they don't have any idea what Trump's going to do. I think it worked on China. I mean, basically North Korea pushed around Bill Clinton after he made his deal with North Korea. They ended up getting nukes. They pushed around George Bush, 43. They pushed around Barack Obama a ton. Mr. Red Line, that never happened. Let's call him Mr. Pink Line. But Donald Trump and his crew are. Then they started coming out saying that the age of diplomacy is over. I mean, that's just sending some strong signals. And no matter what Kim Jong-un says, I know Un is his first name, not his last name. I call him Un because I'm being disrespectful. But no matter what Un says or what threats he makes, I mean, this is the biggest thing that's happened in this whole affair. China closing down, saying that North Korea has to close down their businesses in China to cut off their money flowing into North Korea. That's a huge deal. So bad news, and it's Puerto Rico. As Puerto Rico struggles to recover from Hurricane Maria, U.S. rushes in military assets. It's hard to even get stuff in there. They're short on food, water, gasoline. They don't have any power, at least not much power. I'm sure they have some generators. The ports are destroyed. Listen, these are U.S. citizens. Now, I've been harping on Puerto Rico for a long time, but not the citizens. The leadership corrupt. Incompetent, evil. I think they ought to, when this gets settled down, I think they ought to look into what happened to the $74 billion that's gone, they defaulted on. And they all gave themselves bonuses in the government, before they missed their first payment. But the people of Puerto Rico need help, and they are U.S. citizens. And now let that sink in. 3.5 million people down there are U.S. citizens, and I would cut off all of this aid given to illegal immigrants that break the law to come in here. All the housing, all the food stamps, all the payments, all the medical care. I would divert all that money down to Puerto Rico to help U.S. citizens. I mean, going from Puerto Rico to Miami, Florida is like going from St. Louis to Chicago. I mean, you don't need a passport or a visa or anything. They're U.S. citizens. And now more than ever, we need to spend our money on U.S. citizens that need help, and there's 3.5 million of them suffering in Puerto Rico. Meanwhile, what's Congress all worried about? DACA, about helping the illegal aliens. So we haven't done a single thing for U.S. citizens yet. But we're going to get these DACA kids. We're gonna make the illegal aliens legal. That's outrageous, especially in lieu of the fact we have 3.5 million U.S. citizens that are basically struggling to survive in a country that looks more like, Mad Max than the beautiful island country it was before Hurricane Maria hit. Next up, the most ridiculous thing in sports I've ever seen. they're using the NFL as a political ploy to push a phony narrative. The cops are hunting down black people and arresting them for no reason at all, and police brutality and all that. Does some of that go on? Yes. But I mean, that's all that's wrong with the black community? Oh, no. No. No, no, no. And then for the owners and the players, I mean, these guys make, what, $1 million a year? What's the minimum they make? 590,000, or what's the minimum? $1 million a year? And they're taking a knee? The cartoon that I have is a line of these ridiculous players, with a coffin in between some of the ones taking a knee. I mean, I think it's disgusting. And I think it's a scam. I think it's a phony issue because the Democrats don't have any issues. They're not going to bring in trillions of dollars that's being stashed overseas. They're not going to cut taxes to try to get small businesses going. They're not going to try to build a wall to cut off the flow of drugs and illegal immigration that's destroying our society and stealing jobs from Americans going into entry-level workforce, like African Americans, and cut regulations. I mean, the Democrats, have you heard a single thing proposed by the Democrats that are going to help people? Trump's a racist. Let's get rid of him. That's their plan. And I'll tell you, the overwhelming majority, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of the people polled hate this take a knee thing. They don't like it. And what's popping up on the internet? Just Google NFL, list of NFL sponsors. Boing. And this is what's circulating on the internet. And here's a list of the only opinions the NFL cares about. And they're talking about, boycotting these companies. I mean, here we have, Anheuser-Busch, Ford, Barclays Bank, Pepsi. Ford came out and made a statement. We're with the players taking a knee. We support their right to free speech. Free speech. You can't even do a happy dance in the end zone without getting fined $10,000 in the NFL. They're breaking their own rules. No protest during the national anthem. And they're kneeling and this garbage over this phony, the police are being mean to us, we're victims. And Ford Motor Company, what a bonehead thing. We're going to stand by we're going to stand by the players. I mean, did you see the backlash just on YouTube online? People burning their jerseys. They're burning $500 jackets. They're burning season tickets. And then now they're floating this to boycott all the companies supporting the NFL. I mean, what would happen to Ford Motor Company? How many thousands of people would they have to lay off? How much would their stock take a hit if they lost, 3 or 4% sales? Maybe people say, I don't want that Ford F. You're going to do that? I don't want a Ford F-150. I'm going to buy a Silverado. I'm going to buy a General Motors truck. Could you imagine the costs, the downside for costs to the NFL? And let me get this in right now. I mean, this take a knee thing, my early Sunday release guest, and backed by popular demand, Catherine Austin Fitz. And she says, listen, Charlottesville and this take a knee thing, these are all distractions. The third rail of, the American politics, the people with the juice, are robbing us blind. She's had a professor of economics on her website, Solari.com, and they've gone through and found line by line, massive amounts of missing money over the years. They're up to just Department of Defense and Housing and Urban Development, DOD and HUD. They've identified 21 trillion missing dollars. Let that sink in, folks. 21 trillion dollars that have been spent, appropriated, or misspent, or stolen, or whatever. $21 trillion. Not talking about the 20 trillion we're already in debt for. This is a separate number. Add them together, it's 41 trillion. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitz is talking about getting that money back. Hey, maybe we should get all that money back. That this is a scam, sham, they're not running the government according to the Constitution, and we the people are being fleeced and robbed, and this is a form of tyranny, and she talks all about it on the early Sunday release. But I go back to these imbeciles, the players, the coaches, and the sponsors backing up this phony scam, and I say, hey, why aren't you taking a knee for this? Chicago murders, death toll, 2017, 514. How many of that's black people? Well, on average, blacks have been 76% of the victims, 1991 through 2011. This is according to Ebony Magazine. 76% of this 514, African Americans. Nobody's taken a knee for that. That's just in 2017. So far. So far in 2017. And then we go on. We've got 762 murders in 2016. Anybody take a knee for that? The last year of Barack Obama's, presidency. Anybody take a knee for that? Black Lives Matter. Not in Chicago. That's a near 19-year record. And let's talk about the wounded in 2016. Only 4,331 wounded. And if the numbers are right, about 76% of that is African American. So what's that about? 3,800 or so? 3,500 wounded? Nobody's taking a knee for that. And it's not just me talking about this. I mean, there's been some, terrible things said by other members in the African American community. Cornel West has had terrible negative things to say about Barack Obama's performance, in terms of helping out African Americans. Tavis Smiley, who's a pretty big voice in the African American community, a host on PBS. Smiley, I heard him say this actually. I heard him say this several times. I heard him say this one time anyway, for sure, but he said this several times. Blacks losing ground under Obama. Black people lost ground in every single leading economic category during the Obama years. This is Tavis Smiley. We've been at the back of the bus. I mean, you look at the rates of unemployment in the African American community, it's off the charts, especially for certain age groups. It's 25%. I mean, it's 30%. It's unbelievable. Certain cities, certain age groups, it's unbelievable. If you look at any metric, home ownership, and the Democrats' idea, there's another great idea. We'll give you an extra $1 an hour for your minimum wage job. We're not going to bring money back and spur investment and get small businesses ramping up and hiring people. We'll give you $1 an hour. This is their ideas, folks. And so, of course, we have to blame the cops. We have to blame you got to find somebody to blame, and boy, it can't be the people that African Americans by and large have been voting for, the communist Democrats. I mean, and a few smart people like, Tavis Smiley figured it out. Louis Farrakhan, also terrible, look it up, terrible comments about Barack Obama and what he's not done for African Americans. I don't agree with much with Louis Farrakhan because he's is an anti-Semite and he's a pretty evil guy, but he was right about that. Obama didn't do much for black people, but it's the cops. It's police brutality. And then here we have some more of the policies that have been in place. For the first 2 years, the Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the White House. In the last 6 years of the Obama administration, they had the Senate and the White House. They had a lot of power, the Democrats. And here we have another Civil Rights Commission, blacks hammered by illegal immigration. Yeah, ask yourself, how does flooding the country with illegal immigrants, people that broke the law to get here, to take jobs and benefits away from U.S. citizens, how does that help us? Along with the bright idea by the Obama administration to bring in hundreds of thousands of Muslim immigrants, refugees, mostly men, hundreds of thousands into America where they compete with entry-level jobs with African Americans. How does that help them? It's like Dr. Ben Carson said on the campaign trail, and he said this, not me, that the Democrats are patting the black voters on the head and treating them like a pet. I don't know if it's an exact quote, but it's pretty close. Patting black voters on the head and treating them like a pet. That's what he said Democrats are doing to African American voters. And they got to have a villain, and it's going to be the cops. Are there some bad cops? Yes. Are there racist cops? Yes. But you're acting as if every police force in America is comprised by a bunch of white supremacist racists, and there's not a single African American or minority in any police force anywhere, and that's not true. But I digress. Civil Rights Commission, blacks hammered by illegal immigration. How long ago was this? Oh, yeah, this was 3/16/16. Curious how illegals have gained at African Americans' expense. This is U.S. Civil Rights Commissioner Peter Kirschkanow. Kirschkanow testified, this is in front of the U.S. Senate, that blacks have been hurt more by President Obama's immigration policies than perhaps any other subgroup in the U.S. population. What's wrong in the black community? Number one, they're voting for the wrong people. Number two, they're being patted on the head, according to Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson. In case you don't know, he's one of the world's renowned neurosurgeons, child pediatric neurosurgeons. Now he's head of housing and urban development in the Trump administration. But he's also black. And he grew up pretty poor. And he's real smart. InfoWars, 5/21/15. It's, from 2011 to 2013, 38.5% of people arrested for murder, manslaughter, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault were black. This figure is 3 times higher than the 13% black population figure. And, when you account for the fact that black males aged 15 to 34, who account for around only 3% of the population, are responsible for this vast majority of these crimes, 3%, get that, take that in, responsible for 38.5% of all these crimes: murder, rape, robbery. When you consider that that the vast population are responsible, 3% of the population are responsible for the vast majority of these crimes, the figures are even more staggering. Well, let's just say it's 6%. I mean, 6% are responsible for 38.5% of people arrested for murder, manslaughter, rape, and robbery, and aggravated assault. Now, are there false arrests? I'm sure there are. Are black people arrested more often than white people? Yeah, but they're committing an inordinate amount of crime, more orders of magnitude, greater amounts of crime. Are some of them prosecuted more sternly or better prosecuted than white people? Yeah, but listen, the cops don't show up to a murder and go, "Oh, you're white? Oh, you murdered him? Oh, it's okay. Go on. You're white. It's fine." That don't happen, folks. I mean, this is off the charts. And then you have this same InfoWars story that's about what the liberal mainstream media won't tell you about the stats, and these are all from DOD and FBI. Despite making up just 13% of the population, blacks commit around half the homicides in the United States. This was a DOD statistic that took into account of years 1980 to 2008. Blacks commit 52% of homicides. This is according to the Department of Justice. FBI, more up-to-date FBI statistics tell a similar story. Just in 2013, black criminals carried out about 38% of murders. And again, if it's 13% and you throw out the old, and you throw out the weak, and you throw out the young, and you throw out most of the women, I mean, what do you get, 3%? Let's call it 6%. 6% of the population of one race is committing 38%. That's orders of magnitude overrepresented. I mean, that's just, it's off the charts. Why would something like that happen? Well, and this is where the black leaders, they don't want to step up and lead. They don't want to lead. They want to, "You're a victim. Take a knee." And, this is 72%. This is a documentary. And what does the 72% mean? Well, it confronts the black community's single-parent epidemic. This is from Huffington Post, hardly a right-wing conservative publication. Huffington Post, 72% of babies in the African American community are born to single mamas. And that pretty much will guarantee, maybe not totally guarantee, but the odds are you're gonna be poor the rest of your life. You're gonna be in a tough neighborhood the rest of your life. You're not gonna do very well the rest of your life when you have a single mama. Those families have a hard time. And the policies of the ultra liberal left are caused a lot of this, this Armageddon in the or what do they call it? They call it an epidemic. Nobody talks about that. Nobody's taking a knee for that. Phony issue, police brutality. You got an epidemic of a single motherhood in the African American community. You're flooding the country with illegal aliens, people who committed crimes to take jobs and benefits away from Americans. You've got an unbelievable amount of crime, orders of magnitude greater than your population. Going on, the liberal left will say, well, it's they're being arrested at higher rates and they're being more successfully prosecuted. Now, that doesn't, that might add 10, 15%. That doesn't add 300%. That doesn't add orders of magnitude. I mean, 500, 1,000% more. It's just unbelievable. And I blame the African American community. I blame the leadership. And I also blame the African American community for continuing to vote for people that don't like you, that aren't doing anything for you, according to some who figured it out. It's a phony issue, and it's going to destroy taking a knee, police brutality, social justice. Phony issue, and it's going to, if it continues, you watch the NFL take a hit, and their sponsors. It's going to crush them. Awful pompous of Ford Motor Company to put their company on the line to back up bogus, take your knee, police brutality, and we've had, tens of thousands of Americans die and come back in with flag-draped coffins, and you're going to take a knee? That's where your protest is? And besides that, they're protesting at work. That'd be like me being on the set at CNN. And, oh, by the way, I want to say something in protest at the end of my story. Had nothing to do with my story, but I want to protest. I'd be fired. They'd have fired me, boom, just like that. GOP didn't make it. I mean, the GOP, talking about working against Trump. They campaign on this, including Mitch McConnell and John McCain. They campaign on, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Can't get it done. Too much mud in the swamp. This is the way the USA Today, looked at Donald Trump's tax return. Donald Trump make millions he's going to make millions in tax plan. He takes $1 a year. He didn't take the presidential salary. He takes $1 a year. I think he donates it or gives it back to the Treasury or whatever. But listen, 40% of the people. This is the kind of, bull that that passes for news. It's propaganda. It's a hit piece. 47%, according to some estimates. Romney said 40% of people don't pay taxes. I think that's about right. A little less than half of people don't pay taxes. And according to this, report, USA Today, anybody who has a job in paying taxes is rich. And listen, this is going to help small businesses. Now, of course, they think that's rich people. And small businesses is the employment engine of America. It's not, a Ford Motor Company or General Motors or Exxon or it's small businesses. I think it's 60-some-odd% of all the jobs created. Small businesses and startups, new companies. And they're going to try to make it easier for companies, small businesses, to keep more of what they have so they can invest it and hire more people and get the economy going. Another idea to try to get the economy going, and as I said, the idea for the Democrats is, Whitey's racist, and we need to get rid of Trump. And the police are bad. They're keeping you down. But actually, the plan will do some good for farmers. They have land, and a lot of farms have to be sold and split up and do these complicated trusts. Try to keep the land in the family so that people can keep making a living. I mean, if you have 500 acres in Missouri and you're farming, you're doing all right, but you're not killing it. It better be all 500 tillable acres. I mean, there's some big farms in Illinois, in Kentucky, Missouri, other places, and they have to have the ground, and they take a lot of risk growing crops. I mean, you don't know if it's going to rain. You don't know if it's going to rain too much. You don't know if it's going to have a drought, hail, a tornado. I mean, you could get wiped out. And I know you could buy insurance, but it doesn't, most farmers only insure up to 70%. So, the tax plan, I think, if they can get it through, will give higher standard deductions. It'll cut out a lot of, deductions. It won't cut out charitable donations. It won't cut out mortgage interest, but a lot of other things are going to be gone. But you'll get a standard deduction of $12,000 for a married couple, $24,000. You'll have pass-through income at 25% instead of 39%. That's big on small businesses. That might be the difference between a couple of employees or some new equipment or both in some small businesses. So, plus expensing, they can do 100%, hopefully. Corporate taxes, they want to bring home all this taxes that they have offshore. Gordon Long talked a little bit about that. That may bring that home. It might crash the markets, but it might bring that home. Also, you lower the tax rate, lower the deductions, lower the loopholes, but lower it down to 20%. They wanted 15%. I don't think they'll get it. I think they get maybe 20, 22. That's going to help businesses. These are all ideas to help jobs, help businesses. And as I said, in the unemployment rate, the African community since Donald Trump, and I don't know if this is an anomaly or if this is actually him cutting regulations and getting the economy going a little bit, but has gone down some in the African community. That's going to help. Listen, a rising economy will raise all boats, the boats of whites, Asians, African Americans, Hispanics. A rising economy will rise the income levels and standard of living of all people. That's the best thing you can do. Ronald Reagan once said the best social program is a job. And I agree with him. I want to talk about this because this is a problem that the mainstream media refuses to report, even if hundreds of people are arrested at the same time for child trafficking, child sex trafficking, pedophilia, you name it. But they buried this. I'm surprised this is in front page. If this is a Republican, this would have been on the front page of USA Today. But here we have USA Today reporting Anthony Weiner, the former congressman who took snapshots of his private parts and sent them to underage minors. He's got a 21-month sentence. And, when I first saw this, the 21-month sentence, I thought, wow, only 21 months? What did he agree to testify to get only a 21-month sentence? Did he agree to roll over on his wife, Huma Abedin, who was top aide to Hillary Clinton? On his computer, Anthony Weiner's laptop, they found a file marked insurance that had all kinds of classified information, documents, who knows, all kinds of information. What did Anthony, he turned that over, incidentally, to the Justice Department, because, he didn't want to have that on his computer. That's even worse than what he did with the snapshots of his private parts, but I digress. What did he agree to testify against Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton? I don't know. That's what I thought. Only 21 months? Wow. So, but that is going to be a reoccurring theme, and I predict the mainstream media will be forced to cover it. It's not going to go away. It's the Achilles heel of the Luciferian, deep state, evil people. This child trafficking, child sex trafficking, kidnapping, pedophilia, sexual molestation. I think that is not going to go away in Donald Trump's term. It will not go away. It's only going to get worse. And Anthony Weiner is the tip of the iceberg. Yellen at the Fed says, I just want to start off with this before I get yelled. Gregory Mannarino was on just recently, and he said, the Federal Reserve always gets it wrong. And sure enough, the Federal Reserve comes out and says, the Fed says it may have been wrong on employment and inflation. That's only the two things they're supposed to do, employment and inflation, the economy and the monetary policy, which would mean easier policy. This was the CNBC spin. Wow. Mannarino called me up when he heard Janet Yellen talking about how they were wrong. No mystery here. As you said, it was a mystery. It was a mystery. They have, hundreds of PhD-level accountants, and they don't know what's going on with inflation. Nobody can figure it out, which means I would fire them all. But here we have, it goes on, CNBC, Fed may have overstated the strength of the labor market. Wow. I mean, not that many people are working as you thought. Those part-time jobs aren't really that good for the economy. And the rate of inflation leading to monetary policy ahead that will be easier than thought, Fed Chair Janet Yellen said. Wow, a weaker dollar and more inflation is what I say to that. But Manarino called me up and said, I can't believe that this isn't being covered everywhere. And you know, he was right. It got a big yawn, and they're spinning it like, there's no. So in other words, there's no one day. We're talking a few days apart. She says there's a mystery as to why we don't have inflation, and Manarino says no mystery. The economy's not moving. What does she says? Oh, now there's no mystery. We got it wrong. The economy's not as good as we thought it was. The employment's not as good as we thought it was. I mean, if that isn't a confidence killer to anybody with two neurons touching together, I don't know what is, but. You know, the stock market that day, I think, hit a new all-time high. And here we have this, and speaking of idiocy, and I just want to bring this up here. Let me get this for you. You know, all this Facebook deal, Zuckerberg, he's all, we've had the Russian buying ads. Check this out. Now, I'm going to check out the headline, which is a little hard to read. It's down here on the side. It says, you know, who's behind Facebook ads? More demand to know. And look at this here. It says, backlash grows over the disclosure that social media networks sold $100,000 worth of political ads placed by fake accounts out of Russia. Did you get that, folks? $100,000 worth of political ads? $100,000 knocked Hillary Clinton out of the saddle? Kept her from being president of the United States? That's the most efficient ad buy in the history of ad buys. $100,000. I live in North Carolina, and $100,000 in the governor's race might have, I don't know, got you a week at a few of the TV stations. I think the governor's race, I think Cooper, who won, spent $16 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. Here is what Hillary Clinton spent, $100,000. You know, Zuckerberg, the Russians spent $100,000, they claim. Clinton and her super PAC raised, check this out, folks, $1.2 billion. Hillary Clinton spent $1.2 billion losing, and she basically won the primary by cheating, and I happen to think there was massive election fraud and voter fraud, and, you know, there's all kinds of evidence of what happened up in Detroit and Wayne County, you know, way more votes than registered voters, and the same thing happening in places like Philadelphia. And, you know, Donald Trump has this voting commission to get to the bottom of it, and then magically California makes the entire state, and Jerry Brown, the legislation lawyer, is making the entire state, a sanctuary state to protect their illegal votes. But I digress. Hillary Clinton spent $1.2 billion, and you're worried about $100,000. Donald Trump spent $66 of his own money, and $280 million for $346 million, and one beat Hillary Clinton, who spent $1.2 billion. You know, a billion is 1,000 million. So 12,000 million. 1,200 million. 1.2 billion. 1,000 million is a billion. You're worried about $100,000? I mean, you know, it's 1,000 million plus 200 million is 1.2 billion. You're worried about it? You think $100,000 blew the race for Hillary Clinton? It's just absolutely unbelievable. You know, the Russians, total fake, bogus deal. GOP coming to grips with Roy Moore win in Alabama. And the reason why, they had a primary down there, as you know. They spent $30 million trying to knock Roy Moore, who was a former Chief Justice, keep him from getting the nomination to run for the Senate seat for the Democrats. It's a special election. It's Jeff Sessions' seat. I believe the actual election between the Democrat and the Republican, now Roy Moore, is in December. But Moore won. I mean, you chalk the win for Moore, who's going to be the next senator from Alabama, because if the Republicans spent $30 million and they can only win 4 counties in Alabama, and they lost by a pretty stiff amount, lost by 9 or 10%. The architect, Karl Rove, who headed up that for Mitch McConnell, his super PAC. I mean, this was $30 million by the deep state, by the swamp things, tried to knock Roy Moore out of the saddle, couldn't do it. It looks like the people in Alabama are pretty smart. Steve Bannon was on saying they weren't really debating. They were just trying to do character assassination of Roy Moore. Just a little more about Roy Moore. He's a West Point graduate. He also lost his job as the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court because he refused to take a stone monument out of the lobby of the Justice Building down there, and they fired him. Then he won re-election in 2012. Then he lost his job again because he wouldn't support the gay marriage. He's a Christian, believes the Ten Commandments, believes in the Bible, thinks that gay marriage is wrong as stated in the Bible. And he lost his job again, and then he won, despite the fact that the deep state and the Republican deep state, I'll call them, the anti-Trumpers, spent $30 million. Karl Rove was on Fox News, and it looked like he ate a dirt sandwich. I mean, I'd have said, "Wow, you spent $30 million, you got your tail handed to you." But he was talking about, Donald Trump, the president's candidate lost. Listen, come on. The president tried to curry favor with Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in the Senate, and either he just tried to curry favor or they had an outright deal. Trump and McConnell said, "Hey, listen, if you want anything passed in the Senate, you got to, endorse, Luther Strange." So Trump probably said, "Okay, I'll go down there too. I'll send Pence down there. I'll endorse him. I'll do it." And, right after Moore won, Trump's like, "Hey, congratulations, Roy Moore." And he's out there, reportedly, he's going to, campaign for him. But I think that what that was Donald Trump tried to play nice with the swamp so he could maybe cut a deal with Mitch McConnell. But, man, got creamed. I mean, got creamed. And speaking of religion, I had more people this last week write me emails and comment on the site and comment on the YouTube channel and tell me, knock off the Christian thing. You do too much religion. You shouldn't mention Jesus Christ that much. I'll have a lot of things to be ashamed of when I go to heaven and meet my Maker, but I'm not going to have to be ashamed of the fact that I said Jesus Christ on my website, and I basically said I'm a Christian and I believe in Christ. I won't have to be ashamed that I denied Christ. And I'm not going to. And I'll tell you why. I think this is really a story between what's going on right now in society is God versus Satan. Good versus evil. It's not the Democrats, the Republicans, or the conservatives, against the liberals, or the constitutionalists against the Democrat communists. You have to be you cannot support pro-life. If you want to be a Democrat, you have to support abortion. You have to support baby killing to be a Democrat now. You know that, right? They will not, they're so tolerant, they will not tolerate anybody that believes abortion is wrong in the Democrat Party. And that to me is a marker. I mean, so you have to agree with killing babies and selling their parts. Maybe they don't do that anymore, but I think they did. That's my opinion. So you can't be a pro-life person. You can't tell women, have your baby. Don't have an abortion. No. You have to be pro-abortion. Forget this pro-choice thing. Planned Parenthood. Planned abortion. Yeah, they don't plan families at Planned Parenthood, please. By their own admission and their own material, they basically do abortions. It's planned abortionhood. Call it what it is. And I think more than ever, this is a fight between good and evil. God and Satan. And that's the way I see it. And that's the way I'm going to continue to call it. I had one person who wrote me and told me to knock it off. And I said, listen, I have a free site here. And you're welcome to stay and enjoy the free site. And you are also welcome to go. So with that, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite phrases in the Bible. It's just, I don't know why I'm fixed on this. It's Matthew 28:18, and it's right after the resurrection. It's in Matthew, as I said, and it's Jesus coming to the apostles, and Jesus says, "All power in heaven and on earth." It's either all power or all authority, depending on which Bible, but this is clear. "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me." All. So don't fall for this, the deep state, they're going to come and they're powerful, the devil's in control of this earth. And no, he's not, and no, they're not. Do not fear. Don't be fearful. This is what these weasels want. They want you to be fearful. They want you to cower in a corner. They want you to retract. They don't want you to fight. They want you to give up. Don't give up. Don't be fearful. And with that, prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all, spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control.